Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Ilian Abouassi, and I'm the Executive Director of the American Autism Association. We are delighted to be partnering up with True Changes Behavioral Therapy today to host a workshop specifically on potty training. Just to give you a little bit of background, the American Autism Association is a nonprofit organization dedicated to helping families affected by autism. We do this in a number of ways. Firstly, through therapeutic recreational programs. We additionally have a plethora of different educational opportunities for families. And we also run an autism help hotline that helps families find resources and information in their local area. During and because of COVID, a lot of our programming has been put on pause because we do a lot of in-person work with the programs and advocacy and working with parents and the workshops that we do. So we decided to launch a summer series to help keep parents informed and engaged and offer information or material that they need to help them through this time, as well as keep on educating them. So once again, we are delighted to be partnering with True Changes Behavior Therapy today, and specifically with their director, Mary Von Cardle. Before we begin and pass it on to her so she can share her expertise on potty training with us, I'm just going to go through a few housekeeping rules. Please keep your settings on speaker view in Zoom so that Mary Von's presentation and picture will come up for you as she speaks. Additionally, we'll keep you on mute throughout the program. Please do put any questions or comments that you may have in the chat function at the bottom of your screen. We will be doing a Q&A at the end, but feel free to put your questions in throughout and we'll address everything at the end during the Q&A. So I'm assuming there might be some replicate questions or maybe Marathon will answer it before we get to it, before we get to the Q&A session. We'll also be sending a recording to everyone afterwards, as well as a copy of the presentation and some information that we've put together for you to help you kind of moving, what the next steps are past this. So on that note, I am delighted to introduce the director of True Changes Behavior Therapy, Mary Von Cardle, who's going to be leading us in our webinar today.
Thank you, Ilian. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today on our webinar on potty training. We're happy to have you join us. I'm going to just share my screen. Just give me 1 second, please. Okay, here it is. Okay, so today we're going to discuss potty training. And so potty training can be tricky, especially with an autism diagnosis. We're going to go over evidence-based practices on how to do potty training. So these are methods that are proven to work scientifically. But before I begin, I would like to emphasize that you shouldn't do this unless you have a BCBA assisting you, because every child is different and unique, and they have different tricks that need to be done for them. So really consult with a BCBA. I'm going to go over in general how to do this, but again, you need a BCBA to help you. Okay, so you're going to be getting all of this at the very end, so there's no need to take notes, and I'm going to read over everything. So please feel free to sit back, relax, and I'm going to go over everything in detail. So there's two parts to potty training. There's number 1 and there's number 2. And first we're going to go over number 1. So the study that we're going to look at is called Effectiveness of the Modified Intensive Toilet Training Method on Teaching Toilet Training Skills to Children with Autism. And this took place in a school setting, both in a school setting and in the home setting. So there's two parts. There's part 1 and part 2. Part 1 took place in the school setting. Part 2 took place in the home setting. It's rare if you'll find a school that's going to help you do this, because it's very involved and it takes a lot of effort. So basically, usually when I do this with families, we just do part 1 at home and we just take it from there. But technically this took place in a school. So there was part 1 that took place at school and part 2 that took place at home. So you're going to need some materials. First of all, you want your child to be in underwear. And it's important for them to be in underwear because this way, if they have an accident, they know that they had an accident and they're aware of it. And accidents are a normal part of the process. You're going to want to have a drink of water, and you're going to want to have a timer, and you're going to want to have edibles that the child really loves, like little tiny bite-sized edibles. So every 30 minutes, well, it's actually every 45 minutes, but you're going to set a timer for 30 minutes. And to start with, you're going to check your child when your child's in their underwear, and you're going to offer them a drink of water, not more than 2 glasses of water. And then you say, let's see, are you dry? And if they're dry, you give them social reinforcement and that tiny little food edible. And then you say, let's go to the bathroom, to the toilet. You then bring your child to the toilet, and no matter what, whether they say they want to go or they don't, and they have to sit no matter what. And they must sit for 10 minutes or until the child makes. You can remove the pants because we want to make it an easy process for them. And they can have a preferred toy to play with during this time period. We want to make it very pleasant, and we want to make it so that they want to go to the bathroom. So whether it's an iPad or whether it's a phone or whether it's a special toy, whatever they love the most, that's what they should have. If the child makes within the 10 minutes, they get a lot of social praise, and they get up without having to wait the full 10 minutes. And they can continue to play with the highly preferred toy for the remainder of the 10 minutes. If no urination after 10 minutes, then they go back to work. That's if they're at the school setting. If they're at home, then they would just go back to doing what they were doing before. That's if there's no accidents. If there is an accident during, and then you would reset, sorry, let me go back for a step. You would reset the timer after the 10 minutes on the potty, and you set it for 30 minutes again. So the whole process is actually like a 40-minute process, but the timer is always set to 30 minutes and 10 minutes when they're in the bathroom. And what this does is it does several things. First of all, you're encouraging your child to make on the potty, because the sooner they make, the sooner they get off, and they get to continue to play with the preferred item, so there's no loss there. The second thing is they're being rewarded for being dry. They get a preferred edible that they never normally get for being dry. So those are the 2 things we want to promote: being dry and making as quickly as possible. Now, there's going to be accidents, and that's a normal part of the process. It's important to you clean up with the least care. No reward, no punishment. If the child was playing with a toy when they wet themselves, the toy is removed, and the child is told, you are not dry. There's no other verbal expressions, no jokes, no anger, no facial expressions, and educational studies resume. That's if you're in the school setting. And then finally, there's no reinforcement given for 10 minutes after wetting themselves. But if they're dry after 10 minutes, they can access reinforcement again. So what this teaches them is, I have an accident, I lose the toy that I was playing with, so that wasn't good. But you're not going to express any emotions, because that could create problems. Then next is part 2 for parents at home. So usually we do this part like, see, it all depends on your child. So the first, you want to do the part 1, that's for sure, with your BCBA. Part 2, you'd have to see how that works out. But just to let you know how it worked out in the study, so for the parents at home, there's still no diaper. You would bring him to the bathroom, bring him or her to the bathroom every hour and 50 minutes instead of 30 minutes. And you say, let's go to the toilet. You would hold the child by their hand. If they don't want to go, then they're not forced to go. And after they enter, the pants are taken off by the family and they are told to sit. They should not be forced to sit, unlike the first setting, the first part where they are told, you have to sit. And if they make, they get social reinforcement. During the time that they sit in the toilet, the family is asked not to give any reinforcement for any reason or give any positive or negative reactions. So this time the child's on their own. They're not getting any reinforcement. And then you just want to monitor the progress of the wetting and the urination in the toilets to monitor for progress. So basically, it's just to give the child a different perspective so that they're more on their own and they're more independent, like they have more control over themselves. But basically, I've done this procedure for number one very successfully many times. For example, I've done it with a child who was 3, and his mother and I worked hard at it, and she followed everything for part 1 religiously. And he was potty trained within 2 weeks. It was during Passover vacation, so she was home with him the whole time, and every 30 minutes he was going to the bathroom. By the end of 2 weeks, he was saying no more, and he was going on his own. He was saying pee-pee coming, and he'd run to the bathroom. So just part 1 alone, it could be enough. But you have to consult with your BCBA and see how it goes. Next, we have number 2. This is a little different. First of all, in order to succeed at potty training for number 2, you have to make number 2 predictable. Sometimes it's kind of predictable because the child might go in a corner and squat, so you know, okay, they're going to go. Sometimes it's the same time of day if you're lucky. But we want to make it the same time of day. We want to make it so that the child is regular and we know when it's coming, so that we can make it happen a lot easier. So the first thing you want to do is change the diet. And you have to first, of course, consult with your doctor, make sure there's no allergies. So this is a study called, it's actually an encopresis study. It's called Encopresis, a medical and family approach. Encopresis is a problem that some children with autism have. It's actually a reoccurring problem for a lot of kids. Well, not reoccurring, but it occurs to a lot of children. And so this helps them regulate so that they don't have the encopresis, but it also teaches for potty training too. So number 1 is you want to add bran to the diet at a predictable time. And they recommend adding it to the breakfast. And the amount of fiber you want to add is the age in years plus 5 equals the number of grams per day. So if the child is 5, then you say 5 plus 5 equals 10. They'd want 10 grams of fiber per day. And you would put the bran in their food so they don't even feel the pain. You could put it in like yogurt, or you could put it in other things. You want it to be smooth. You don't want to put it in something that they could choke on. Excuse me, I just had to take a sip of water. And so the next thing you want to do is tweak the diet a little bit to make it more likely to have to go. That means you reduce the intake of bananas, rice, and apple peelings. You have to increase water consumption, and that's determined by weight, and we're going to go over that on the next slide. You want to eliminate sugary drinks and high-fat foods from the diet, like soda or fast food. You want to take daily multiple vitamins with calcium. Next, fresh fruit juices should be limited to 4 ounces daily and replaced with fresh fruits and vegetables. Dairy should be limited to 8 to 12 ounces per day. Avoid drinking more than a sip of fluids after 6:30 p.m. each day. That's to stay dry through the night. So if you're potty training, this is just a side note, if you're potty training at nighttime, they recommend no more than a sip of fluids after 6:30 p.m. to keep them dry through the night. But that was also part of the same study. Next, you would have the child sit on the toilet for 10 minutes, 20 minutes after breakfast, and 20 minutes after dinner, because that's when it all is going to start working, 20 minutes after they eat. And I find that it usually works 24 hours after you start. So let's say you eat the bran this morning at 9 a.m. By 9 a.m. tomorrow morning, you should start to see the process work. Give rewards for dry nights and clean underwear. And this is, again, have them sit in the toilet for 20 minutes, 10 minutes after, have them sit for 10 minutes, 20 minutes after they eat a meal. And this is how much water to give your child per day. So this is a formula. And again, you'll be getting the handouts. And this is all on the handout. So like, for example, if a child weighs 60 pounds, see the mathematical equations right here, they're gonna need 6 to 7, 8-ounce glasses of fluid per day. And that is how to potty train for number 1 and number 2. I'm gonna open it up for questions now. And I believe Ileana's gonna join me.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. That was really helpful. So we've gotten a handful of different questions as people registered for the event or messaged us separately. So I'm just going to go through those, and hopefully we can get some answers for the families that we have here today. So we had quite a few questions about people, their children holding in their bowel movements or like needing to use the restroom. How do you recommend parents encourage them to go when they need to go?
Well, that's the best part about the procedure is they're sitting on the toilet for 10 minutes and they have a preferred toy, so they're relaxing. And if they have to go, they're probably going to go within that 10 minutes. Like, it might not happen the first time or it may not happen the second time, but once they see that you mean business and that they're going to sit for 10 minutes or until they make, they're going to start to produce.
Okay.
So, and you just want to be encouraging. You don't want to say like, oh, come on, pee, you gotta pee right now. You just want to just let them just do their own thing. And if they make, then you give them tons of reinforcement, and that's going to encourage them to make again in the future.
Okay, that's great. Another question that we got was just, when my child has a wet diaper, they automatically take it off. Does that mean that they might be ready to be potty trained?
Yes, they are probably ready to be potty trained because some of the assessment tools we have, they go through the procedures for like for potty training. There's other procedures too, and they say if the child can recognize that they're wet, then that's a step towards potty training. So that's a good sign that they recognize that they're wet. And but you want to put them in that underwear and follow this procedure, because then they're gonna be like, oh my gosh, I don't want to wet myself. What do I have to do to avoid this?
Of course. I guess another quite similar questions that I guess in terms of determining when a child is ready is another question that came in, and they're trying to help their son associate using the restroom in his diaper with using the restroom in the bathroom. Would it be helpful to begin changing the diaper in the restroom so that kind of process stays in that room and then they associate going and changing in there?
Yes, definitely. I definitely recommend staying in the environment where the toilet training is going to take place. Sometimes parents they put like a little potty in the living room, or they put in the kitchen or whatever, but I discourage that. I recommend instead putting it in the bathroom, because that's where the training is going to take place. And you just want to make sure that room is very reinforcing so that they want to go. Okay. And by reinforcing, I mean, it's what they want. It's what they want.
Yeah. Okay, fantastic. Thank you. And then another one was that children playing with their poop. How can you encourage them to stop doing
that? Well, again, you're going to want to have a BCBA with you, because I don't know all the details, but in general, people tend to react very angrily or very excitedly when they see their child play with poop. They might go, oh my gosh, what are you doing? Stop doing that. And that could be reinforcing for the child, because they might think that's funny. Mm-hmm. So the first thing you want to do is not react like that. But the second thing you want to do is get a BCBA to help you determine why they're doing it, so that they can prevent it from happening.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you.
Excuse me, just getting a drink.
And so we received a few questions about with young boys sitting down and standing up. So one was about, there's kind of two questions related to that, so I'll just give them because they're quite similar, or at least in the same topic. One was specifically about, should you start potty training a boy sitting down, and when do you transition to having them standing up? And then another parent is struggling with encouraging their son to stand up because he actually doesn't want to touch himself while using the restroom, and so they're trying to teach him how to go about doing that. What would you recommend for that?
Okay, so I personally recommend sitting on the toilet, because then they're going to make number 2. It's going to be easier to go to transition number 2, because usually the first thing you do when you potty train is you train for number 1, and then you have the problem of number 2. But if they're already used to sitting, then it's going to be much easier to transition to number 2. The second thing for the parent that has the problem with having the child stand up, I don't know all the facts. Again, I can't stress more than to get a BCBA to help you, but you might want to just give them the option. If they stand up, they might want to get a reinforcer, like if you stand up. But it's really, if the child prefers to sit, then, it's not really harmful to sit either. So you got to take that into account too. Is it stigmatizing? No. Is it harmful? No. So is it really something you want to fight over?
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you, Mary. So another question that's come in, I'm just going to read it. My daughter is nonverbal and tends to move around a lot, so keeping underwear on to potty train has been an issue. Do these techniques work for children who are nonverbal, and do you have any suggestions?
Yes, these techniques work for all children with autism. It's evidence-based, it's proven to work, and I've made it work with children before, and even children who are nonverbal. You really have to get a BCBA to help you, but what I can say is you want to make it very reinforcing, and just find what the child really likes. But this sounds like you needed help from a BCBA to figure out how they can make it work, and a BCBA can make it work. So I recommend getting one for that, because I don't really know everything for this one.
Okay. Another one is, my daughter doesn't have autism, but she's almost 4 and would rather use number 2 on herself rather than using the toilet. She's back in pull-ups rather than in underwear. How can I get her to use the toilet more?
Okay, so we want to start off by tweaking the diet so she has to go at certain times of the day. This way it's going to happen in the morning or it's going to happen after a meal, just like the second study shows. So you would have, and then you have you'd have her sit on the toilet during that time. She's probably going to have to go. It's going to be very hard for her to hold it in. And then as soon as she does it on the toilet, then you give her whatever she wants. She wants ice cream, she gets ice cream. She wants an iPad, she gets iPad. And she also, while she's sitting there too, she should have whatever she wants, except for food, obviously. But when she's sitting there, she should have everything she wants to make it very pleasant for her.
Okay. And then another question we received is about timing. So obviously a lot of parents are at home with their children right now. Do you think now is a good time to start potty training if they feel like their child might be ready? Or do you think because there have been so many changes in terms of schedule and day-to-day that it might not be a good time to put another change on their child?
The best time to do potty training is when you're home with your child, because then you could be there, and because it's going to take a lot of effort. It's going to take a lot of effort, a lot of dedication. And the best person to do it is the parent. And so if you're home, then that's the best time to do it.
Okay.
Because you're going to be able to take care of it.
Okay. So now is a good time because everyone's out.
Yes, definitely.
Okay, that's great. Well, I think that is all the questions that we've received. I'll give it another second to see if anyone has any others they'd like to.
Okay.
But in the meantime, just a reminder that we will be sending out the information that was posted today, in the presentation, as well as a worksheet with everything on it, in addition to some extra resources that we have, and the recording, and Maravon's contact details, as well as our contact details if you do have any questions. I think that's it for the chat, so we can wrap up, and I'd like to thank everyone for joining us today. We do have a series of webinars coming up, so please stay tuned on our calendar for sensory-friendly cooking classes, or more workshops on behavior, and a series of different topics that we'll be covering. So please do stay tuned, and we look forward to having you joining us then. And Maravon, thank you so much for today and for all the information you provided us with.